Hi guys, welcome to this new module. We're going to be talking about conflict management, problem solving and flexibility. I'm very excited to be sharing this knowledge with you today because what we're going to be talking about is not going to be applicable just in the career space but also in your personal space as well. It is quite evident that we cannot escape conflicts or avoid problems anywhere in life. So we're going to learn some tricks and trades on how to get better at managing ourselves while facing conflict situations or situations that have some problems which are impacting our decision-making abilities. The key thing to remember with conflicts and problem solving is that we always need to keep the end intent in mind, right? The end goal always needs to be very clear. So we're going to go into detail on how we need to do that. The thing to remember about inflexibility is that not being flexible tends to impact our ability to navigate successfully through the challenges that we face. So in the topic of being flexible or flexibility, we're going to be discussing how can we have the right mindset and the right approach to our problems so that we can successfully navigate through any career related or personal problems. Last but not least, what we'd also try to do is try and relate to what is being taught to you in conflict management, problem solving and flexibility to real life experience as well. This does not necessarily mean that you're already in a conflict with someone at workplace or in your personal space, but if you're not, then that's fine. But if you are, then you can relate to what is being taught to you. And I'm sure in life we will have experiences where what we're learning today is going to be put to good use. Conflict management. Understanding conflicts. Let's spend some time to understand what conflicts really are. I want you to think to yourself, when was the last time you actually had a conflict with somebody? It could be at your workspace, it could be in your personal space. How did it make you feel? What were the thoughts that crossed your mind? Think about this for a minute. I'm sure you're able to recall all the things that happened during that instance, all the things that were going on in your head, or probably how tense the situation was. I mean, if you ask me, there are numerous instances in my career when I was in a very conflicting situation, not necessarily with just one person, but quite a few actually. The good thing is I managed to pull through, of course, and there was a lot of learning that came out of it. One thing is absolutely for certain, that in any work situation, conflict is inevitable. It will happen. People tend to disagree with one another, so conflicts are bound to rise. In our attempt to understand conflicts, we also need to understand that we need to be aware of what kind of a personality we are portraying when we're trying to solve problems. You see, sometimes people tend to be different at different places. Like, for example, the way you are at work is not the same way you are at home, right? So it's important to understand that the personality that helps you solve problems or be good at conflict management is the same person you have to carry along in different parts of your life as well. So we'll try and understand during this module how we're going to put emphasis on identifying who that person is, who's that problem solver inside you. A conflict is nothing more than a disagreement that needs resolution. Now, this is a very important point to remember when you're approaching a conflict situation or trying to manage a conflict. It is a disagreement, yes, but there is need for a resolution there. So usually when we are put in such situations or we face such situations, just because there's a disagreement, we tend to take a step back and get very defensive and not try and really face the problem. But it's only one resolution away. It's a disagreement, but if you find a resolution, you solve the conflict. Conflict is also an expression of desire. Usually we pay no heed to someone else's desire because we are so interested in our own. But if you're able to understand why the other person is really conflicted and why they are going through so much trouble to actually pick up a fight with us, then we'll understand that there's a desire hidden there. Somebody wants something and they're not getting it, either because of you or for some other reason. It's the same thing with you. You want something and you're not getting it. It could be for any reason. So there's always a hidden desire present which needs some kind of fulfillment. And once you're able to understand this desire, it makes it easier to solve a conflict. Conflict can be constructive. It is important to understand that conflict and conflict management can be very constructive and can actually aid your progress. During my career, what I always noticed was when there were conflicting situations, and every time I was able to manage them well, it only strengthened my relationship with the other person or between the two people that I was helping solve a problem. So this only goes to prove that if conflict managed correctly can be very constructive and can lead to a very positive outcome and a stronger relationship building and to growth as well. Another aspect of conflict management is that there are people with different points of views. There are people with different ideas, different approaches to the same situation or the same problem. Now, the thing to remember here is that when different people approach the same problem, they also provide different solutions to the problem. So conflict management will lead to diverse ideas leading to diverse solutions. Most people avoid dealing with conflicts. The reasons are many. We're going to discuss a few important reasons why people avoid dealing with conflicts. First and foremost is to keep the peace. Some people just prefer not getting into a heated argument or not wanting to approach someone else because they just want the peace to remain. This might not necessarily always be the best approach. I'm not saying that you should go out and fight, but just saying that you want the conflict or the misunderstanding or the anxiety or the fear or the anxiousness to remain because you want peace and peace is more important is not necessarily the right thing to do. It is important to manage the conflict, and even if it is at the cost of a little bit of peace, then that's okay. Timidness is another reason why some people avoid conflicting situations. It's just because they are very shy. In such cases, what usually happens is there is more like an oppression kind of a feeling that happens with such people. So they feel oppressed and they're not able to express their views. They do only what they are told, and there is a lack of creativity involved in such situations. So in a conflicting situation, if there is someone who is very timid, he would prefer to just, do whatever he's being told. And that would not necessarily strengthen the work environment that he is in. What's important to understand here is that we need to move out of this mentality and face the conflicting situation so that we can build stronger relationships and come to a resolution. Lack of confidence is also a primary reason why people hesitate to resolve conflicts. Now, this confidence is not something that you just learn overnight. It is something that comes with time and practice. Obviously, we've all been in conflicting situations, but every time we hesitate to face a conflicting situation, it only impacts our self-confidence. So the important thing here is to know that in order to have the confidence to face conflicting situations, you have to first keep trying to resolve your own conflicts. Once you do that, you gain the confidence all by yourself. So lack of confidence plays a crucial role where conflicting situations just remain the way they are. Last but not least, most people don't know how to manage conflict. So it's very important for us to understand how we approach a conflicting situation and make sure we come to some sort of a resolution where both parties are made to interact with one another. It is also important to understand that a resolution may not always be exactly what you want. It's usually you want something and the other person wants something, and when you work together you end up somewhere completely different. So we will of course go into detail in that. Now let's talk about the positive effects of conflict management at workplace. One of the first positive effects I'd like to talk about is that it improves the overall work environment. Now this is a very important factor when you're working as a team, because the work environment plays a very crucial role in affecting all aspects of the business. When there is a positive work environment, it not only helps and aids productivity, but it also strengthens the bond between the team members, which leads to a very positive work environment. You must have also noticed that most of the times what happens is when there is a conflict, and if the conflict is resolved, then the two people end up becoming best of friends. That is, the reason for that is after a fight, the bond between the two gets stronger. So this is one of the positive effects of conflict management. Not only that, it also elevates the stress levels that a team might face in their pursuit of achieving targets, so that really helps. Another positive effect of conflict management at workplace is that it creates job satisfaction. People have this tendency to feel really happy when their problems are resolved. Now, it's human to have such a feeling. It's not just limited to your workspace, but it could also be at home with your family or with your friends. Whenever something is resolved or a conflict is managed, they feel very happy. Now, giving this feeling at the workspace especially has a very positive effect, because they have this feeling at work that no matter what the problem is, they will get a solution and their problems will be solved. So that increases their level of job satisfaction. They come to work knowing that no matter what happens, their problems are going to be solved. So that's a very positive work environment to be in. It is also for this exact same reason most employees will like to share their personal problems at work, probably with their supervisor or their leaders or their managers, because they feel that comfort level and they feel that when they will tell their problem, they will get a solution. Conflict management also helps and promotes growth. Because of conflict management, what happens is there's a stronger bond that is formed between all the team members and with their reporting managers as well. This leads to overall positivity and dedication to the team. This results in people sticking around, in the team and not actually wanting to leave wherever they are working. This automatically opens new avenues and new opportunities for them. So in situations where conflict is managed effectively, there is a lot of growth opportunities, because what happens is people who have their issues resolved and are very happy being in the team tend to pursue internal growth, and they look for opportunities within the organization. They like working for their team leader or their manager. They don't quit, so attrition is very low. All of this results in a very positive work environment, good for growth, and people look for opportunities and are very excited to grow within the company. Conflict management also results in the building of stronger teams. Now, this is a very important aspect, especially when there are multiple teams involved in an organization. A business can only be successful if each individual team performs well, and each team can only be successful if all the team members contribute to the success. Now, effectively managing conflicts within the team provides a very nurturing environment, which ensures that productivity is good, attrition is low, and performance is at its peak. There is a sense of belonging that is there within the team members, which makes them feel that they're really supposed to make sure that their team is number one. All of these factors contribute to the building of stronger teams. Effectively managing conflicts also results in the encouragement of independent thinking. Independent thinking is a very important aspect of business, especially in today's work environment where the business dynamics are constantly changing. Independent thinking results in each team member feeling like they are a valuable part of the whole process. So it is not just, they don't just come to work to do a task and then they go home, but giving them the freedom to think what they like and being independent about their views leads to a lot of diversity and a lot of creativity that they contribute to the team as a whole. Let's discuss now the external causes of conflict. The very first point we discuss here is human interdependence. Human interdependence is the major reason for conflict. It is quite obvious that whether you're in your career or in normal life, it is not possible to do everything all by yourself. There is dependency on other human beings as well. Now, when you're working in a team or you're working in a business, you will do one particular task in a day or in an hour, and the other person does something else, and together you make a project or you make many projects. Now, this is a kind of a dependency that is there that is not escapable. So this nature of human workings, this dynamic, the social dynamics that is there, forces you to interact with other people. You cannot just sit in one place and do your thing and go home. It's not going to happen that way. So human interdependence is a very natural and normal part of human life. And in your workspace, what happens is if there is a disagreement with someone because of this interdependence, then it leads to conflict. Another reason for conflict is poor communication. Communication, as you all know, plays a very crucial role in what kind of a perception you create with other people. So poor communication, not communicating your ideas correctly or not following the right mannerisms, results in could result in probably a heated discussion or a lot of misunderstanding between team members or between individuals. This automatically leads to conflicts and misunderstanding. Lack of resources or opportunities is another reason why conflict management happens at workspace. We know that there's always a limited amount of time that we need to finish something by, or there are very limited opportunities for a promotion or to probably win an award or for probably to win some incentive. Now, all these factors tend to put pressure and stress on individuals. Some people are able to handle that stress and pressure, but some are not. Usually when they're not able to handle such situations or circumstances, it leads to a high pressure environment which automatically leads to outbursts, or people just being very stressed and reacting very negatively. So this is one of the factors that actually causes conflicts at workplace. Competition also contributes to conflict. Every business is competitive. It's not about just having a business compete with another business, but within a business there are many teams. Now these teams compete with one another. Within a team there will be different individuals competing with one another. This competition could probably lead to a situation where, because everyone is so competitive and right on edge to make sure that they come out as number one, it could lead to situations that cause conflict. Lack of clarity of roles and responsibilities also is a major contributing factor to conflicts. Usually when there is no clarity about what is expected out of an individual, then this could lead to disagreements or misunderstandings or simple delays in a project. When such situations arise, then it leads to a conflicting situation where the other person is probably blamed or held responsible for what has gone wrong. Now, during such times, it is very important to clarify what the person's role is and what the responsibility is, so there isn't any mingling happening. Clear lines need to be defined. Each person needs to be held accountable for what his or her responsibilities are, so that there is no confusion and unnecessary stress or any blurring of the lines. All human beings have different personalities. Some like to be very outspoken and brave, some might be very shy. When people with different personalities come and work together, this could lead to a situation where there are clashes happening. So people with the same personality type might form a group and be together, or someone who is more aggressive might just like to dominate the whole situation. So it is very critical to be aware about how the other person's personality is, so that when we work with someone, we can understand and acknowledge what they're feeling and thinking, and work with them to create a situation where there are no clashes happening. Unfair treatment and biases also results in conflicts. When we work as a team, it is important to ensure that there isn't any unfair treatment happening, or the other members of the team do not feel that there is some kind of biases happening in the group. What happens in such situations is that it could lead to gossip, it could lead to dissatisfaction, it could create an atmosphere where the other person feels there's a lot of partiality going on. All these contribute to conflicts. So the work environment that you create needs to be one where there is no partiality, no unfair treatment or any biases, because this will ensure that there is a positive work environment and everyone feels like they belong and are treated fairly. Let's now discuss some of the internal causes of conflict. One of the reasons why conflicts happen is because of an internal system that is very rigid. There's an internal rigid belief system. Usually when we are in a conflicting situations, we tend to get too stubborn to what we believe in. We prefer not to be flexible or not listen to the other person. This kind of a rigid belief system makes it very difficult to actually tackle a conflicting situation. Ego and pride also play a very crucial role during times of conflict. Just because you've said something and you're not willing to budge from it because you have too much ego or you have too much pride to accept that what you might have said is wrong, leads to an unreasonable dragging of a conflicting situation. Most of us even have this sense of insecurity that probably if they lose out in a conflicting situation, then that would be bad for them, or their name would be spoiled. Well, this insecurity does not aid the situation, and it is important to understand that in order to resolve a conflict, we need to put our insecurities aside and focus on the intent at the end, focus on the bigger picture. A fear of change is one of the major causes of conflict, and it is something that happens within us. Usually we are so used to the way things are that when change happens, it leads to this sense of fear, and we react to this fear by simply either engaging in a conflicting situation or just reacting very emotionally. Now, this leads to a very difficult situation, not just for the other person, but within yourself as well. So fear of change plays a very crucial role in internal conflict. Lack of knowledge on how to solve an external conflict or an internal conflict leads to a situation of helplessness. So it is important for us to not only understand but also apply the principles of conflict management. Once we know how to manage conflict, whether it is external, whether it's internal, it will automatically lead to a more peaceful situation and lead to growth and more opportunity. Understanding human nature. In our effort to become an expert in managing conflicts, the very first thing we need to do is understand human nature. Without understanding the principles of human nature, it becomes very difficult to master conflict management. So let's discuss a few points that will shed some more light on what human nature actually is and how can we manage conflicts better. The first thing is we need to understand yourself before you seek to understand others. This is a very important point that most of us don't tend to pay attention to. We usually try to understand the other person before understanding our own state of mind, our own feelings, our own thoughts, our own emotions. So before we go out to actually understand why the other person is frustrated, first try and understand why you are frustrated. Once you know why you are frustrated, it will give you better understanding of what your own frame of mind is, and therefore give you more understanding of what the other person's frame of mind is. The next thing we could do is developing awareness. It is important to develop awareness so that we understand the other person's state of mind. Now, usually in a conflicting situation, we are so engrossed in the frustration or the anger that we are feeling that we tend to not focus on what the other person is feeling. But focusing at this point on what the other person is feeling is more beneficial to a conflict. Therefore, we need to develop this awareness of what the other person is going through. And once we know that, we come into a dominant position where we can actually really acknowledge the other person's state of mind and find some common ground. Conflict is in our nature. Think of an example. Let's put two people in the room. I'm sure you agree that there is no guarantee that the two people will like each other, but it's quite certain that the two people might have some conflict, right? Now, even if the two people do fall in love with each other, eventually they'll end up fighting anyways. So conflict is in our nature. It is a part of human chemistry. Anger is usually our first response. We all want peace. I mean, there is no doubt about that. But whenever there is a conflict or whenever our peace is threatened even a little bit, then anger is usually our first response. We instantaneously tend to get irritated. Now, this is a part of our nature. Fighting this anger is not really going to help. But once you become aware of this anger, then you gain a great deal of influence in a conflicting situation. So say, for example, you're in a situation where someone says something that upsets you or angers you. The moment you're aware of this anger and the moment you accept it, that gives you more control over your emotions and, most importantly, your reaction to that situation. Resolving internal conflict. The first thing we need to do is resolve the conflict that is within us. Now, the first step here is to obviously understand and acknowledge the frustration, the anger, the resentment that we're feeling in a conflicting situation. Once we're able to identify these emotions that we're feeling because of a conflict, it gives us a great deal of influence in resolving them. The second thing to remember is to trust the process. Whether you're at your workspace or whether you have a disagreement with a boss, there will be a conflict management system in place. There will be a process which you can follow by which you can solve the conflict. So you need to learn to trust the process. The third thing we need to do is understand our own hidden reasons. Sometimes we get into a conflict, but when asked why we are in this conflicting mood, we might not necessarily give our true reasons. So it is very important to first understand what our reasons are. We usually tend to blame 10 other things, but what really upsets us, we might not be upfront and speak about it. So if you want to really resolve a conflict, first understand what you're really upset about. Having an open mind also aids the entire process of conflict management. Being too rigid or being too stubborn in what your beliefs are or what you want out of a situation only makes the conflicting situation even worse. So in your attempt to resolve a conflict, having an open mind is definitely a good idea. Last but not least, always remember the enemy is within. I'm not saying that there are no enemies outside. What I'm trying to say is that you first need to get a handle on the enemy that is within you. Think about this for a second. Say, for example, think of a person you had a conflict with recently or in the past. There is, of course, that person out there, but then there is also that person in your own mind, right? So this image that you have about this person in your head is the first real enemy, because the person out there can only be faced if you first face the enemy that is within you. So face this enemy that is within you by changing your perceptions and your understanding, and have hope that the other person has the potential to change and you both can come to some sort of consensus. Approach to conflict management at workplace. Let's now understand a few approaches we can have when trying to resolve a conflict at workplace. Know what to expect. Usually in a conflicting situation, we tend to have our own expectations and are very hesitant to listen to the other person. Well, that's not necessarily a wise thing to do. What we need to do is have an open mind, listen, acknowledge, listen to what the other person really wants. Have that approach of resolving the conflict. Treat people the way they want to be treated. During a conflict situation, we are so into how we want to be treated that we forget how we are treating the other person. It is important to remember that we should treat people the way they want to be treated. So always make sure that you take that first step, be polite, be responsive, listen, acknowledge, and treat the other person with compassion. Communicating respectfully is very important in a conflict management situation. The very first impression a person makes about you is when the moment you start communicating is your own tone, your mannerism, your body language. And respect is very crucial in a conflicting situation. The very first thing you need to do when you enter into a conflicting situation, or when you're trying to resolve it at least, is make sure you're paying respect to the other person. The moment you do that, that automatically levels the playing field. Be subtle, not forceful. We usually tend to get very aggressive and passionate and anxious about what we want in a conflicting situation, but that's not necessarily helpful. The other person also has their own opinions and viewpoints, so it's better to be subtle but not forceful. Be persistent. Persistence plays the key in solving a conflict. What happens is when we're in a conflicting situation, tempers might flare, everyone might be very emotional, and it gets difficult to actually come to some agreement or consensus during that time. So what we could do is, rather than trying to come to a resolution at that same very moment, it is better to be persistent. Give in a little, take some time, be patient with the other person, and allow persistence to do the work. Slowly and gradually, you will be able to come to some consensus and some common ground. In a conflicting situation, it is always important to focus on benefits. By doing this, what happens is the other person that you're having this conflicting situation with tends to come at ease, because he realizes that this discussion or this conflict is not focused towards ruining him or making things more difficult for him. The focus is on his benefits. And while you talk about his benefits, always make sure that you're talking about your own benefits as well, so you come to a win-win situation. Always remember to attack the problem, not the person. When we're in conflicting situations, we tend to go ahead and personally attack someone. This kind of an aggressive approach creates a lot of misunderstanding and puts everyone on a very defensive mindset. So it is better to always focus on what the problem is. Try and leave out comments which will affect someone personally aside. Seek advice. Whenever you're in a conflicting situation, it is wise to also seek advice from other people. When I say other people, I mean human resources or your immediate manager or your boss. When you do that, what happens is it gives you a third-party viewpoint of what actually is happening in this conflicting situation, and it will shed more light on how you can manage the situation better. Plus, chances are anyone from the HR team or your bosses will have more experience in managing a conflicting situation, so this will make things easier for you. It is also advisable to avoid gossips or sharing your conflicts with your peers at all costs, because it is also important to not share your conflicts with your peers, because this will only encourage gossip and only complicate a situation. In order to ensure that conflict management is a part of your environment, it is always a good idea to encourage people who resolve conflicts or make an attempt to resolve conflicts. This ensures that the work environment is positive, and people who have conflicts later on can always follow the example that was set by others. Always remember to also encourage team building activities, humor and fun. This kind of activities will help create some kind of informal bonding that will make people in the team more comfortable, which will reduce the chances of conflicts. Now here's an activity we can do. Think of any conflicting situation that you have at your workplace. Answer the following questions as honestly as possible. Question number 1. List down the people you have conflict with at work. Question number 2. Write down the reasons why you both are in conflict. Be as specific as possible. Question number 3. Would you be willing to take the first step into resolving this conflict? If not, Why? Question number 4. What is the outcome you hope to achieve? Question number 5. Do the both of you benefit from this outcome? If not, then what could be a win-win? And last but not least, who can you approach to help resolve this conflict? The purpose of this activity is to shed more light on your conflicting situation and probably find a way by which you can resolve it. Take a minute to complete the activity.